Hi, everybody. Welcome to Live Spirit Chat. If you haven't been to Live Spirit Chat before, these sessions happen almost every Sunday, although it's been infrequent lately. Typically, this happens on Sundays at 3 p.m. United States Central Standard Time on YouTube as well as Instagram. And this is a chance for you to tune in and take part in a live free teaching session and get your questions answered. So we talk about developing your spiritual connection, developing your spiritual path, developing your spiritual practice, and all kinds of things related, such as practicing magic and working with your spirit guides, doing dream work, divination, and so forth. So thanks for being here. It's nice to see you. I'm excited to be here. Hi, Wendy. Nice to see you. Hi, Jay Dizzy. Hello, Busy Bee Alchemy. Some new faces. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm excited to be here because I think that this is the only live session that we're doing in January. It seems like I haven't been on forever. I've had a lot of things to do locally and been busy otherwise. So things have been good, but you know, there's been some stuff going on Sundays, so I haven't been able to be here. And it seems like I may only have one live session coming up in February as well. So if you are participating in the spirit chats, you're going to want to pay attention and take a look at when the February session is scheduled, because we might have only one or maybe two in February. So you'll want to pay attention to that. And I do schedule them in advance on YouTube, and then I post that on Facebook as well. So you can check those two places. If I don't make an Instagram announcement, you can also check those two places to see when February's live session will be scheduled. So for these sessions, I do take early bird questions, meaning that you have a chance to submit your questions early. And that means that you can submit them anonymously. It also means that I am more likely to get to your questions because I can get to them at the top of the hour, right after my special announcements. And then if we have time, I am always happy to take live questions as well. Sometimes we don't have time, but usually we do. I don't know yet how long I'm going to stay on today, so we'll see how that goes. And I do have quite a few early bird questions already to answer. So if you want to submit live questions, you can go ahead and put them out there now, and then I'll get to them when and if I have time. Or you can definitely sit on them and wait until it's time. It's totally up to you. I'm just going to take a moment to settle in. Let's see what kind of special announcements I have. So, right. I was thinking about changing the time of Live Spirit Chat. And here's the thing. So full disclosure, I don't always talk a lot about what goes on with me behind the scenes. I try to keep this for you all, right? I'm here to serve you. These sessions are for your questions. It's a chance for you to get questions answered that you can't get elsewhere. It's a chance for you to talk to somebody who's been practicing a long time so that I can assist you in anything you're cloudy about or confused about in terms of developing your practice and developing your path. You know, there's lots of questions that arise along the way. I know firsthand I had to do everything alone because I was very young when I started. I always knew that I was gifted. I never kind of got out of that zone. You know, a lot of people are born with gifts and experience a lot of phenomena when they're children, and a lot of people kind of leave that behind or get out of that. I never got out of it. I always stayed in it. So I always knew that I had a connection. I started practicing actively and really consciously when I was really young, like 15, 16 years old. I lived in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the country, in a mostly Amish community. There was really no one around to help me. I was isolated and other people didn't have the same beliefs and didn't have the same experiences that I had. So I know firsthand what it's like when you're developing your practice, or maybe you're developing some growth with your psychic or spiritual connection. There's a lot of questions that arise. There can be confusion, and it's really nice to have somebody to go to help you and guide you along the way to answer those questions, somebody who's been through it before. So that's me. That's why I'm here to do this. So what I was going to say is I don't always talk a lot about myself because I try to make these sessions about you. But I wanted to give you a little bit of background information about what's going on with Spirit Chats. So I make my own schedule. Of course, I'm self-employed. This is my job. My husband does not make his own schedule. We're very close. We're BFFs. We like to spend our time together. We like to spend our days off together. But his days off are sporadic, and we don't always know in advance when he's going to have his days off. So when he gets time off on Sundays, then I take Sunday off. And then that means that I don't get to do Spirit Chat. In addition to that, I always have, not always, but I sometimes have Austin Witches Markets. Like when I participate in local events, like when I do readings locally for the Austin Witches Market, those always happen on Sundays. Recently, I led a class, a 3-hour workshop at Minx Plus Muse for manifesting New Year intentions, right? So these things also take up time, and they take up time on the weekends. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm doing, and why I'm not always getting to Spirit Chats on Sundays. So what I'm getting at is I was thinking about changing the day of Spirit Chat, and I was also thinking about changing the time. So it may work out better, especially if we're going to continue to do this on Sundays, to have them earlier in the morning, late morning. Or it may also work out better to just have them on a different day, like on a weekday. It might be easier for me to maintain that schedule, and then you'll get your Spirit Chat more consistently if we do it on a weekday. So I do want to hear from you if you can, especially if you're people who participate regularly, especially if you're a regular Spirit Chat attendee, or if you're a Mystic member. I'd like to hear from you about when Spirit Chats will work for you. Let me know your thoughts. Mornings, possibly not Sundays. Along with that, if you are a Mystic member of my Patreon community, I am going to be making some changes there, and I am going to be making a video to speak to my dear, lovely Mystic members later today and update you about what those changes are. The thing is, there's only so much time in the day. I want to do it all. I really do. It's one of my strengths and one of my weaknesses. And when it comes to serving you, and when it comes to running the Mystic membership and running the community, it's not just about what I want, and it's not just about what you need or want. It's also about what Spirit wants. And it's really important for me to have all of those things balanced and in harmony. It's always my goal that I'm working for my spiritual evolution as well as your spiritual evolution, and that I'm doing it with intention, I'm doing it with inspiration, and I'm being led by Spirit to do this work. So these things need to be in harmony. So I'm going to be discussing that via recorded video with my patrons, my Mystic members later today. If you're a Mystic member, pay attention. And then if you haven't signed up for monthly Mystic messages, you should do that. It's linked in my Instagram bio. It might be, I think it's linked underneath my YouTube videos too. And then that way you can get an announcement about the Mystic member changes, and you can stay up to date about what I'm doing there and what I offer. Hi, Brooke. Nice to see you. So, all right, cool. Let's dig into the early bird questions. And if you see me glancing over, my altar is back here, and I've got some candles going, and I'm keeping an eye on them. So what are the early bird submissions I have received? The first question is, how can one open the third eye? So I'm going to give you the short and simple answer, and I'm going to give you the caveat that this will take work and this will take dedication, but it can be done. I will also give you the background information that you're going to want to know how to cleanse and protect yourself. You're going to want to know how to stay safe if you're going to dig into this kind of work seriously, okay? But the third eye can definitely be opened. I certainly believe in the ability that we all have to develop and deepen and strengthen our psychic abilities. I would certainly recommend for opening the third eye that you start by, you work with your third eye chakra, right? So you work with the chakra that's actually here. Start learning about energy work with the chakras. That's a really good place to start. Next, there's a really simple visualization that I love. You're going to want to get into a meditative state first. So whatever kind of techniques work for meditation for you, you're going to want to employ that. If you don't have a meditation practice yet, then now is the time to start. So you want to be in a meditative state. You already have your energetic or spiritual protection in place before you get into that meditative state. Then the exercise is that you visualize something like a movie screen behind your third eye with something like a thick red velvet curtain that closes and opens the movie screen, that covers the movie screen, right? And you just practice tuning into that movie screen and allowing yourself to see images and to see visions on that movie screen. And in the beginning, just practice allowing yourself to see images, just allowing them to come. Don't even worry too much about interpreting them in the beginning, because the whole point is that you're strengthening that third eye connection. You're strengthening your clairvoyance. Third eye is related to clairvoyance, which is seeing visions, prophetic visions or psychic visions. So the whole point of this is that you're just strengthening your ability to see visions and allowing yourself to see those visions. And then the other important part of the practice is that you practice opening and closing that red curtain, or, whatever color works for you or whatever works for you. You could do a blackboard with something else in front of it, but you have to practice opening and closing this third eye door to see the screen or to see the blackboard. That is for the purpose of you learning to control these visions, so that as you become more practiced and as your vision becomes stronger, you're able to tune into this and turn this on and turn this off when you want to or when you need to. That is the brief description of tuning into your third eye or opening up your third eye. I do offer one-on-one sessions for this kind of work, where we can actually perform this energy work together, do the exercises together to deepen and develop these kinds of techniques, these kinds of psychic abilities, these kinds of natural, not supernatural, but natural abilities that all of us have. All right, let me have some tea and then move on to some other questions. Can you eat food after it's offered on an altar? You would not. In most traditions and in folk magic, in spiritualism, in Espiritismo, and in most of the traditions from the 21 divisions, in all of the traditions from the 21 divisions, you would not eat food that is an offering. That food needs to be eaten by spirit, meaning that spirit comes and absorbs the energy of that food. That food will have no sustenance left in it. It will have no energetic value. There's nothing there for you to eat. It'll be empty food, and it would be rude to offer food and then take it back and eat it yourself. Now, there are situations and traditions where food is given, it's given as an offering, but it's more about the food being blessed, right? So for instance, I've seen in Hindu ceremonies where they're having a big celebration, perhaps a feast day of sorts, and they put a lot of food out for the gods, and that food is blessed by the gods. it's an offering, but it's also a blessing upon the food. And then they share that same food with all of the participants. And when the participants eat the food, they're eating those blessings, they're absorbing that energy. But they did that with a specific intention. And in the kind of magic that I'm practicing, and in the kinds of magics that I mentioned, that is not the intention. The intention is to give the food as an offering. You would not take an offering back. How does one take care of a mojo bag? So I don't think that all of my ideas about mojo bags are traditional. My folk magic isn't 100% traditional. I also have my own methods, my own philosophies, my own beliefs, but these are my ideas about what I feel is a powerful and successful way to work with a mojo bag. So if you have a big goal, a big or very pressing, a very important goal that is tied with your mojo bag, or that is the overall intention of your mojo bag, then you may want to feed that mojo bag once a week. Feeding a mojo bag means to give that mojo bag offerings. It means to give it energy, to give it strength. There are many ways that you can do that. Some of the traditional ways include and so forth. Wow, it looks like my YouTube connection went down. And I think it's back up. Anyway, so those are some of the ways that you can give an offering to a mojo bag to, hi, Joanna, to increase its strength, to feed it, to keep it revived, revitalized. If your goal is more like something ongoing that is not a super pressing matter or doesn't involve a need for quick change, then you could set up a monthly schedule to feed that mojo bag, to strengthen that mojo bag. And I recommend the possibility of doing that with the moon phases, right? So if you are working for love or increasing your psychic abilities or increasing your spiritual connection, you may want to do that on the full moon. If you're working on new beginnings or changes in your life, you may want to do that on the new moon. If you're working on reversing, releasing, banishing, letting go of the past, and so forth, you would want to do that in the dark phase of the moon. So you can also set up a schedule to care for your mojo bag in conjunction with the schedules of the moon. Okay. I think that's about covers everything that I would recommend for taking care of a mojo bag. I'm not talking necessarily about, sorry, there's something in my eye. I'm not talking necessarily about how you would care for a mojo bag in the beginning. So one of the things that I would recommend to start out to have a fresh connection with your mojo bag, from the beginning, is that you do put some DNA in there. I mention that because many times a mojo bag is being made by somebody else and then shipped to us. So if those instructions are not clear from the beginning, you do want to put some of your own DNA in that mojo bag to create that magical energetic link between you and the bag, and then proceed with the caring of the bag, the feeding of the bag. I mentioned that my views are not necessarily traditional, right? But I also feel that there are times when you can open the mojo bag and you can refresh it. You can refresh it with a pinch of fresh herbs and so forth. Whereas many people recommend that you never open the mojo bag, I feel that you can do that just the same way that I do with container spells or with jar spells. If you're going to keep those around for a long time, you can revitalize them with fresh herbs or fresh ingredients to kind of re-energize it. Okay. Next question. I did a spell and it worked. So what do I do now? First, you rejoice. You give thanks. You give gratitude. Secondly, you do not overthink it. You tell yourself, yes, of course, my magic worked. My magic worked because I am strong, I'm powerful, and I'm magical. My magic worked because magic always works. My magic worked just like the sun comes up tomorrow. Of course, my magic worked. And you set it aside. You don't want to get into a situation where you're overthinking it. You don't want to get into a situation where you are you start to obsess over it or you start to worry about it. So don't put too much thought into your spell or your magic after it's done. When it's done, it's done. If it worked, great, then you're grateful. This leads into the next questions, which are, when you do a spell and it worked, how do you thank the universe for the blessing? So first of all, if you worked with or prayed to any specific deity or spirit or ancestor or spirit guide, you want to thank them specifically. But if you just want to thank the universe, of course, you can do that as well. There are lots of ways to do that. You can do it in a small offering. You can leave a biodegradable, completely natural offering in nature, like by a tree or by a stream, and just give a small prayer from your heart of thanks and gratitude. You can light a candle that is specifically prepared or aligned with the energies of gratitude and thanks. And you can give that candle as an offering. Consider that flame, consider the burn of that candle as an offering. That is an offering for gratitude. Basically, anything that resonates with you, anything that works for you, is okay as an offering to say thanks to the universe for the positive outcome of your spell. And even if you just take the time to say some prayers of gratitude, then that's still an offering and it's still a beautiful thing to do. Next question. Hello, Art of Casting. Thank you for being here. If my cat has cancer, what kind of spell work can help to support him? So, first of all, I'm sorry about your cat. That's really sad. I'm sorry to hear that. For this kind of spiritual support that's related to health and wellness, especially related to caring for another being, especially related to caring for an innocent and helpless being like a cat, I would recommend working with the spirit because that's how I work. And there are some saints that I prefer for working with the well-being of animals. My first go-to is Saint Francis, and the second is Martin of Porres. So I would recommend working with them. And I don't necessarily recommend or feel that a spell is specifically necessary as much as I would recommend just an offering and prayers to that saint. I would light a vigil candle. I would put out some water. I would put out some hot food, maybe some coffee, something of that nature. And I would sit down and I would say prayers from my heart. And if it is a saint or a spirit that you haven't worked with before, or you don't already have a strong connection with or relationship to, then you are going to want to acknowledge that from the beginning and acknowledge that you're coming to them from a place of dire need, that you're sorry to come to them so abruptly when you know you don't have a relationship, that you do want to offer them gratitude from the very beginning, even for taking the time to listen to you, and that you will continue to be loyal to them and to offer them gratitude after the situation has passed. And there are other deities that you can work with as well. If saints don't resonate with you, of course, Bast is the cat goddess, and there are many other deities who would relate to caring for animals, such as Hecate and so forth. Okay, what is the next question? Somebody says, unrelated question, but how do you keep your skin so clear and healthy? Thank you. So cliche, drink a lot of water, eat plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables, take care of yourself from the inside out. And then the next thing is I do have a video about natural skincare, and most of those things recommended there are things that I still do and I still recommend. Somebody asked about that previously. I think it was like 4 years ago. So I do have a video about that. You can find it on my YouTube channel. I do give specific recommendations for products and processes for caring for your skin. One of the things that I've been doing lately that really works well for me is a light acid peel. I use fruit acid. Alba makes a really great all-natural fruit acid peel. It's very affordable and it works really well. And I do that pretty regularly, like 3 or 4 times a week. In the morning, I use that fruit acid before I wash my face. So that's one thing you can start with now if you want to. But if you have dry skin, you want to be careful with that. You want to either do it less or you want to make sure that you're getting in some extra moisture. Oh, there's only one more question and then we can take live questions. How do you know if your spell backfired and what do you do? I don't believe in spells backfiring. Most people who practice folk magic, from what I can tell, most people who practice folk magic don't believe in spells backfiring. Backfiring means that your spell has the opposite effect than you want it to, or that your spell comes back on you and causes some harm or chaos or discord in your life. I don't believe in that. What I believe is that the worst that can happen is your spell doesn't work. The other worst that can happen is your intention isn't clear or you weren't specific enough in what you're trying to manifest in your spell. And then your spell does work, but it's not exactly what you wanted. So you do want to make sure to be careful with being specific and setting your intentions and speaking clearly about what you want or writing clearly about what you want and so forth. So yeah, I guess that's my answer. I don't really believe in spells backfiring. So if you feel like your spell didn't work, if you feel like things aren't going right, then go ahead and try it again. Do it over again. If you feel like your spell is having results that you did not intend, then you could reverse it, or you could just start from scratch and do it over again, right, with clear intentions this time. Okay, so let's take some live questions. Hi, you changed your name again. I don't know what to call you. Boog Hillbilly, welcome. Nice to see you. If you weren't here before, I keep glancing back because my altar is back here and I'm keeping an eye on some candles. It looks like I have a lot of new people maybe. So I do want to just take the time to let you know. I'm going to be a little bit repetitive, but if you haven't been to live spirit chat before, these happen on Sundays. I try to have them almost every Sunday, but it's been a little infrequent lately. But they happen on Sundays at 3 p.m. United States Central Standard Time. I do announce them in advance. I schedule them on YouTube. They happen on YouTube and Instagram. So I schedule them on YouTube, and I also announce them in advance on Instagram. And this is a chance for you to participate in a live group teaching session and get your questions answered about all kinds of things related to developing your spiritual practice, developing your spiritual path, your spiritual connection, and all the things related and in between, like practicing magic and folk magic, candle magic, dream work, working with your spirit guides, divination, and so forth. So I had quite a few questions submitted on YouTube, so I'm going to take a look there first. How would you use dragon blood oil? So to the best of my knowledge, dragon's blood is used for protection. I believe that it can be used for enhancing your spiritual connection in general, but it's really excellent for protection. So it's one of those ingredients that has kind of a double use, which makes it even better for enhancing your spiritual practice because it's also offering you that protection. Oil is most often used with either paper or with a candle, especially oil like that, which wouldn't be recommended for you to put on your skin. Now, there are a lot of spiritual oils that you could put on your skin or that you could put around your home or even in your bath. But with dragon's blood oil, I would recommend using that with a paper petition, which means writing out your spell or writing out your petition and then using the oil on the paper to assist with bringing that into fruition. And a lot of people perform magic that is solely based around writing. So you when we're talking about writing out a petition, that could be your whole spell within itself. And then you could use the dragon's blood oil as an extra support for that spell, or an extra ingredient for that spell as well. Or you can use it to dress a candle the same way that you would use any oil to dress a candle. If I don't know what kind, like I would need to know a little bit more about the type of oil, what the ingredients are, who made it, stuff like that, in order to know what it's safe for. But if you do feel that it's safe for use around your home and you're seeking some protection, then you could use that on your doorknobs, on your windowsill, and so forth, for protection of your home. Or if you wanted protection for your car, you could use it in your car, right? The next question on YouTube is, if you have time to answer this and you want to talk about it, could you tell us a little bit about what kind of services you offer and how they differ? I've been to your site, but I'm not sure what is right for me. Well, thank you for asking. I offer all kinds of different services. So performing magic on behalf of clients, performing magic on behalf of clients from a spiritual perspective. I do a lot of spirit work with saints or with specific spirits, as well as spell work, right? And then I also offer all kinds of readings on via phone, via video, and so forth, as well as pre-recorded readings. And I also offer one-on-one guidance and teaching sessions for people who are looking to develop their spiritual practice or their spiritual connection. And I have a few different teaching and guidance sessions for different purposes. So the long story short is that I would need to know exactly what you need help with and what your situation is, what you need help with, and what your end goal is. And you can contact me via email, and I will consult with you for free, and we can figure out what your goal is and how I could best be of service for you, and create a plan that is really customized to you to maximize your strength and maximize the success of your outcome, and something that's really hand-tailored to you and hand-tailored to your situation. What's the best way to set up and work with lodestones as it relates to money work? So I like to use lodestones in a spell box or in a charm bag or mojo bag. That's how I personally like to use them. And the reason why is because then you can add some magnetic sand, and the sand isn't it's nice to have a container for the lodestones and the magnetic sand. And then you can use your money drawing herbs and whatever ingredients really resonate with you, and create a nice little compact spell within a container. Bless that, and you can continue to work with it over time. That's how I prefer to work with lodestones. And lodestones are really nice too, because that's a great example. Like if you were going to use them in a charm bag or a mojo bag, that's a great example of something that needs regular feeding. So you would want to use that magnetic sand to regularly feed your lodestones, and thus add energy, add power, and add intention to that over time. Can I reuse your protection bags? I got some a while ago. Oh, hi. Nice to see you. I know who you are. Nice to see you here. I did put them in the full moon light in the garden. Yeah, you definitely can. I'll be quite honest with you. It's been so long that I don't remember exactly what was in those protection bags, but you definitely can, revive them, reuse them, and reuse them for sure. And you know what you're doing. You put them in the full moonlight, so you've got them nice and charged up. You could definitely refresh the ingredients with some fresh herbs or some fresh curios or botanicals, and charge those up. You're good to go. What about candle magic and lodestone sand? So my recommendation for candle magic and lodestone sand is that if you want to put the lodestone sand or the magnetic sand on the candles, you're going to want to sprinkle just a tiny bit over the tops of the candles after the candles are already set up and standing upright. You don't want to completely load your candles with magnetic sand or completely roll your candles in magnetic sand. It will make them difficult to burn. But what I do have good results with is sprinkling just a little of the lodestone sand over the tops of the candles around the wicks. I'm going to take one or two more YouTube questions and then move on to the live Instagram questions. How do I start doing a daily nature spirit offering? I don't even know where to place things. I have grass and a small piece of cement backyard front yard. Okay, well, it's okay. It doesn't have to be super formal. It doesn't have to be super complicated. You can start by putting your offerings wherever you feel is the right place. It's really important in spiritual practice that this feels good to you, that it feels right to you, that it resonates with you. So you can start by putting your offering in your piece of grass. It doesn't have to be a big majestic display. The most important thing is that you're focusing on your connection and you're focusing on your intention and you're focusing on coming from your hearts. That's what is most powerful, not what kinds of offerings you put out or where you place them. Now, that being said, if you do want to connect further with nature, you may want to consider taking a weekly or a monthly outing out into the woods somewhere or out into the mountains or near the water, whatever works for you, and leave a bigger offering at that time. Make sure that it's all natural and biodegradable. Don't leave anything in nature that, isn't. But you may want to set up a schedule like that for yourself so that you are working on it a little bit more in depth on a regular basis, right? That would be my suggestion, especially if you feel like you're not really connecting in the area that you have around your home. Maybe forget about a daily offering. Maybe your daily offering is a prayer instead. But instead, you could work on doing that weekly or monthly offering and make it an outing for yourself where you can really spend some time in nature connecting. I think there was one more YouTube question before I get back to Instagram. Can I use my gold magnetic sand and lodestone food sand on my papers as well and mix it all up with my oils on papers? Yeah, you definitely can. And for doing that, I would recommend making a little packet. Like in folk magic, it's often called a paquette. But what you can do with that is write your petition or write your spell out and then use the oil to dress the paper like we discussed. And then you can put your sands or other ingredients in the paper and fold it up into a nice little packet. Find a way to seal it. You can place it in a place of importance around your home that relates to your goal or intention, or you could carry it around with you. And then that way, that could be something that you can feed regularly. Just like we've been talking about feeding our mojo bags or charm bags, you can feed that regularly in order to recharge it and kind of re-up the energy. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about your cat. I'm sorry to hear about your cat. So she's saying, thank you for answering what to do about my cat. He actually passed away last night. Is there a way to connect to him through spirit guides? I was going to recommend to you St. Lazarus because I was thinking I love St. Lazarus for assisting with kind of ushering souls out of the world. But I didn't want to say that because I didn't want to predict the death of your cat. But you could go to so my point is, go to a psychopomp, go to a spirit who specializes in traveling between the worlds, a spirit that relates, that you connect with, that specializes in traveling between the worlds. Like Hecate is one, anything related to the crossroads is one, Saint Lazarus is one, spirits who go to the underworld and come back, or spirits who take people to the underworld, right? I would recommend you start there for connecting with your cat, because your cat just passed. It's not going to be readily available to you with the assistance of a spirit guide. In my opinion, it's not very likely. Instead, go to a deity or a spirit that is a psychopomp. That being said, if you do have a relationship, a very strong relationship already existing with the spirit guide, you could certainly ask that spirit guide for help with this. Let me go back, see what kind of questions have been submitted on Instagram. Probably not going to have time to get to everything today, guys, but I'm so happy that you're all here. I love your questions. Thank you for being here. Thank you for submitting such interesting questions and making this enjoyable. What are your favorite herbs that you like to use? That are all purpose or to help spells move quickly? So I love patchouli root. When we talk about patchouli root, it means all the parts of the plant, the branches, the roots, the leaves, the wood, all the parts of the plant. And it is what's known as a precipitato. So that means that it enhances all of the power and energy of all of the other ingredients used, and it also speeds up the overall intensity and time frame of the spell. That is my favorite go-to, patchouli root. Also, if you really want to add some speed, this isn't an herb, but if you really want to add some speed, then you can add some coffee grounds. Those are two of my favorite go-tos. Hi, Mary Moonstar. Nice to see you. How much spell work is too much on one particular issue? Balancing the letting of things happen organically versus magical assistance. Thank you. It really depends on the situation. It really depends on the specific situation and also your spell approach. So the approach that you use with magic is really important, right? Because you can try to be really aggressive or get really aggressive with magic. And you can also implement gentle and consistent spiritual support with magic. So it really depends on the situation, what's needed for that situation. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to work closely with, when you're seeking assistance from someone else. That's why it's really important to work closely with your spiritual worker, to get readings, to check in about the situation, to let them know how things are going, etc., so that the plan can really match what the situation needs. When you're doing spell work on your own, you would want to be checking in with your own guidance in order to assist you with those decisions. And you would want to be making sure that you are looking at things from as objective as a perspective as you possibly can. Sometimes our own emotions get too tied up in situations when they're something really close to us, and that could affect our judgment in terms of the magic that we make. So a lot of times that's why people go to someone else if it's a situation that's really close to you emotionally. Yes. What's the book you suggested I get for grief? It's the Grief Recovery Handbook. And by the way, y'all, super secret special announcement nobody really knows yet. I'm going to be doing some grief work with my Mystic members via the Patreon community. It's been on our list for a long time, and I think it's time. I think we're all ready. I'm ready. We're going to be doing some grief work in the Mystic membership, but that is definitely the book that I recommend. It's very, very effective. It's very affordable. It's very easy, but you do have to put in the work. But I recommend this to anybody, the Grief Recovery Handbook. the method is called the grief recovery method, and then there's a handbook. So maybe it's called the grief recovery method handbook. But you can find it very easily online for very inexpensive. It's very, very effective for getting over situations. The way that we treat grief in our culture is pretty despicable. Time will heal all wounds. Basically just telling people, just wait, it'll go away. Not really a great approach. So that book actually, and that method actually, is very informative and educational about what grief is and how we can tackle it, how we can approach it, and how we can actually begin to heal from it, and how we can put in the work ourselves, what we can do to assist that healing. And that grief can apply to all kinds of things. It can apply to the loss of a marriage, the loss of a job, right? The divorce of your parents. We have grief over all kinds of things, and we have very few rituals and outlets in our culture for expressing our grief and expressing our loss and expressing our emotion. We have very little space in our culture for expressing those kinds of emotions, and very little room for being honest about our feelings. So I highly recommend the grief recovery method and handbook. Oh, I'm so sorry about your cat. You might want to do the grief recovery book we were just talking about. You found it. You just asked me to remind you about it, and now you already found it. Okay, let's see. I have them next to Angel Michael at the moment. You're welcome, Victoria. That sounds lovely. I know to put them on my words, of course, lol, but I wanted to know if I could mix it all up, or would that be good? Yeah, you can mix the powders together. Yeah. I'm just giving you some instructions about how to make the whole thing into a spell that works together, and make it into something that you can keep with you and continue to work with. I'm wanting to help fire ants to be more friendly towards my children. Man, I'm sorry, but that's one thing I don't recommend magic for. I recommend that you put some denatured earth out. Denatured earth is totally natural, and it will get rid of the fire ants. It's completely natural. It's harmless to children, harmless to all creatures except the fire ants, unfortunately. I recommend that you pour the denatured earth right down their fire ant hole. Sorry, guys. I'm not being very friendly to creatures, but fire ants are no joke. You don't want them around your kids, and you don't want them around. And yeah, that's what I recommend. Can I bury my papers in the ground? Yeah, you can. If you want to, especially if this is something that you are wanting to attract into your life consistently over time, then you might want to bury it next to your front door, for example, to welcome blessings into your home. You could bury it in a houseplant inside your house to watch your abundance and prosperity grow. There are all kinds of ways and reasons that you might want to bury this. You're welcome. You're welcome. Do you have any information or insight on Brigid of Kildare? Yes, I do. I do, but not tons off the top of my head. What I was thinking of when I said yes, I do, is that I've written a bunch of information about her, especially in conjunction with Saint Brigid or Saint Brigid, on my Instagram as well as on my Patreon page. So there's a ton of Instagram information and Patreon information. I don't think I've posted any of that in my Facebook notes, but I bet that there is some correspondent information on my website, MissMelindasMetaphysicalServices.com. There is a blog on that website, and there's probably some St. Brigid or Brigid of Kildare information there as well. What I can tell you about Brigid is that she's related to fire. She's related to transformation. She's related to transcendence. She's also strongly related to water and to healing waters. So there are a bunch of sacred wells all over Ireland that are holy wells that have miracles known to them. Of course, all of this has been attributed to Saint Bridget now, but they were originally associated with the goddess Brigid, right? So healing waters, transformative fires. This kind of energy indicates overall transcendence, taking pain and turning it into something new, alchemical kind of energy. This kind of healing is when we take pain, we take trauma, and we put it through the fires of transformation and we turn it into something new for ourselves. That's her overall kind of energy. She's also associated with fertility, with motherhood, and with hearth magic. So those are some things that I know about her. How do I feel about Archangel Michael? I'm really drawn to him. First of all, yeah, if you feel that you have a really strong desire to build a relationship with her, then pay attention to that, because that is your intuition speaking. That's your intuition telling you who you have a connection with. So I'm sure that it would be beneficial for you to work on building that relationship. Archangel Michael, very powerful, very protective. I don't have a ton of feelings about him, but I found him to be very powerful. I found him to be quick to respond. A lot of people say that he's aggressive and that you need to be careful with him and that, but I haven't had those experiences. I find him to be quick to respond. I find him to be excellent for protection. I mean, it's well known that he's protective, so that's not new information. But yeah, work with Archangel Michael if you feel really drawn to him. That's your intuition speaking to you there. I find him really easy to work with, really approachable for people and really quickly responsive. So I think that you will have a good time and an easy time, most likely, setting up a relationship there. Okay, everyone, it's time to log off. Thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you soon. Like I said, we may only have one, possibly two, but maybe only one spirit chat in February as well. So pay attention to the announcements, pay attention to the YouTube schedule or the Facebook announcement, and we'll see you again in February. Thanks so much for being here. It was really nice to see all of you. Really great to answer your questions and to have this lively conversation. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate all of your interesting questions and all of your support. Be well and have a lovely Sunday. Goodbye. Stay blessed. Stay blessed.